All right, everyone, welcome back into another PrizePicks video. Got a jam-packed day today, touching on NBA, WNBA, MLB, and maybe a little bit more. Let's go ahead and get into it. So real quick, just a recap from yesterday. Rough day. I got a little too confident. The gambling gods got to me, but overall, the month of May was just a solid month. Easily the best month that I have had, and I'm assuming that you guys have had as well. Hopefully, the month of June, we'll be able to do the exact same. Probably not, because it was an awesome month. But let's go and get into the picks for today. And just a reminder, if you guys enjoyed the coverage, make sure to give a like and subscribe. All right, so starting out with NBA DFS today, looking at the game preview, we got Miami versus Denver. And what I find extremely interesting is going to be the point total of the game being 219. I would say if that is accurate, if it's going to be that high scoring of a game, then Miami does not have a chance to win. So what I'm saying is I agree with the spread. If that game total is going to be that high, for Miami to win, they cannot get into a shootout, right? They need to play strong defense. And so that's the biggest question. Can Miami play strong enough defense? And if you think Miami's going to win, then obviously you would want to bet with that. You'd want to bet that their defense is going to be strong. Thus, you'd probably want to bet the unders for the Nuggets, okay? And then maybe potentially you could bet the overs for the Heat as well. So personally, I'm probably going to be skewing more towards the Nuggets, but obviously we'll get into the props and see if that's going to hold up. And then as well, worth mentioning that the Jokic free square is still out there. So obviously take advantage of that if you can. So what I find interesting is, yes, these two teams have met in the past, okay? Is that even really, I don't want to say worth looking at, but at the same time, like this Heat team is definitely different, right? You have some of these role players just out producing really who they are. And you have Tyler Hero and Oladipo both out. You know, Duncan Robinson's going to get some minutes as well, most likely, which probably means like Gordon or potentially Michael Porter Jr. are going to have a easier defensive matchup. So just interesting in that regard. So I'm not putting too much weight into that, but you know, we can go ahead and look at kind of the past results. The Nuggets have won both times recently, and there's nothing too crazy here looking at the NBA game preview, okay? What I want to call out, though, is I could see Jimmy Butler struggling today. And I think that because you look at what the Nuggets did to Kevin Durant, how they were kind of shading him, if you will. I think they're going to do that to Jimmy Butler as well, where he's going to be their defensive attention. And I love the way the Nuggets did it. It was kind of like a zone type thing where, and they did it with Booker a little bit too, where they just put more defensive attention onto those players. And now, yes, the Nuggets were able to do that because DeAndre Ayton was out, especially at the last game. But I still feel like that is going to be the correct defensive decision. And so I kind of expect that to occur. And so the question is, will those secondary ball handlers, playmakers, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry, are those players going to step up? Tough to say, honestly, like it's the first game. But with that being said, with this being the first game of a series, I do find that that's the biggest edge that we could potentially get. So let's go ahead and look at the top props today. And we can see it's kind of crazy. Like basically all the projections are suggesting that the unders are the way to go. So if we look at the best over bets via the Vegas lines, the projection data would be suggesting the unders. And I think that's coming down to, especially in terms of the Nuggets, given the defensive matchup, kind of interested in that regard. So looking at it, like it's not a good slate. It looks like we're going to have to kind of game theory this instead of going based off of the Vegas over and unders. Now, I do want to call this out. This is an interesting one. So the average sportsbook line is favoring 50.83 points, rebounds, and assists for Jokic, with the over being minus 136. So they do really like the idea that he's going to be able to get the over here. The issue is obviously the matchup there. Okay, so that's kind of my worry. And guys, I just noticed the amount of more random props that they keep tossing in here. Stick to the bread and butter. There's a reason why they keep putting in those props. They want you to bet on those. It's just crazy. But yeah, looking at it, obviously it's been going off lately. And if it is going to be that high score in the game, 219 over and under, then yeah, I do think he's going to be able to get this over. So I'd be fine betting that one. The biggest worry that I have for the Nuggets is literally the time off that they had. 10 days is a lot. You know, Miami's going to come in mentally sharp, mentally geared up to play. If you guys have played any sports before, any like basketball tournament in the past, you know that it's just you're more mentally geared up in that moment. The more time off, the more time you have to think about other stuff. Maybe you're not as engaged as you should be. But obviously, I don't really draw too much from that. I think these teams are going to be geared up and ready to go. Obviously, it's the NBA Finals. So with that being said, with the Jimmy Butler kind of idea, I do think that once again, I do think the Nuggets are going to be able to kind of shadow him a little bit, maybe go with a zone a little bit more. And so I think there's just going to be more defensive attention on Jimmy Butler than there has been in other series. And if you look at these games, like he hasn't gone the over by too much. The worry that I have is that Boston was a good defensive team, and well, the Nuggets aren't as good as them. So that's my worry there, is that he gets a better matchup now. Then I don't really love the Jamal Murray fantasy score prop, although that was one we were hammering. Really, it seemed like against the Lakers and against Phoenix, a bunch, right? I feel like given the defensive matchup that he has, I want to just pause on that. And so looking at Bam, I'd probably want to bet the under here as well. I don't love that, but I do think the fantasy score props are going to be the way to go. I don't mind the idea of doing over fantasy points for Michael Porter Jr. I do like Gabe Vincent tonight, whether that be fantasy points or it's probably just going to be real life points, okay? He has been someone that has been extremely productive, and he was on my bet of the day in Game 7, and it was unfortunate that Vegas was wrong about the game because Miami blowing out Boston meant that Gabe Vincent, who was kind of dealing with an injury, only got 26 minutes, and in that 26 minutes he still had 10 points. Okay, so I think maybe potentially points is going to be the way to go here. So if we look at his points, I like that prop. 12.5 is decent, especially in a game that is projected to be a higher scoring game than what Miami has experienced the last couple of games. So that's probably going to be one of my favorite kind of game theory based props. Now, Vegas doesn't really agree with that, and the projections don't really love that either. But to me, I like that one the most. That one makes the most sense to me. Then I'm curious, do you guys think Caleb Martin continues to play this well? I don't really know. I'm very cautious against it, actually. But to me, I do think Miami as a whole, they do get better matchups today. So just interesting in that regard. And obviously, if the game kind of goes the way I think, where Jimmy Butler could potentially get shut down, then I do think, the over points for Gabe Vincent's going to be the way to go. And then Caleb Martin probably going to be a decent prop as well. You could potentially look at maybe Duncan Robinson for over points as well, because they're going to need some offensive production from somewhere else. And that's kind of the tough part about playoff basketball, is that we're always trying to find something. Whereas regular season, we can pretty much pick and choose where we want to go. This is kind of trying to find a narrative and going with that and maybe making some stacks based off of that. So that's enough with NBA. Let's go ahead and switch up into WNBA. All right, so we only have one game for the WNBA today, but it is one that I do think I kind of like, at least right now, based off of the props that are coming in on the cheat sheet. There are some ones that look like we have a decent edge. Now, there are going to be more odds pulled in throughout the day as the sports books get those odds in, so that it could change throughout the day. That's my long way of saying it could change throughout the day once we get more data coming into it. But right now, we will see that we have some pretty awesome prop bets. So we got the over points here for this one, a very strong prop that we're looking at. Basically, Vegas line 16.5, PrizePicks line 16.5, projected at 16.3, but the unders are probably the way that we want to go. Let's look at these. These are pretty crazy. The only issue that I have is the projection data that's being pulled in suggests that we should be betting the over. That's my worry. But we got two props here. Assist over 2.5. Okay, projected to get 2.8. Probably can make that bet. I don't know. I trust Vegas a little bit more than the projection data. So you can roll with that one. And then looking at rebounds here as well, this is my worry, okay? But I do want to call another one, and this is kind of crazy here, guys. Thomas for over 11 rebounds, okay? The average Vegas line has it at 11.5, and they're favoring the over, minus 143, okay? So that to me is probably the best prop bet that we're getting currently. Like I said, this data could change as we get more data coming in for WNBA DFS. The sportsbooks are a little bit slower to respond to the WNBA props, but that's also why we can get an edge on PrizePicks. Kind of like we did at the beginning of the NBA season, middle of the NBA season and whatnot. They're just slower to respond then. So I do think that that's going to be a good prop that we're looking at. And then for what it's worth, let's just pull in and see any prop line differences between PrizePicks and Underdog. Because 2 days ago, there were a couple of big edges there. Now, I'm assuming because it's a one-game ordeal, there's not going to be that many differences. And yeah, so right away, this is basically a push. But that's a push at 9.5. Okay, so not terrible, I would guess, on Underdog there, where it's 8.5 for points for Jessica. Not terrible there. Now let's flip it around here. And then there are two props here where Underdog is valuing them a little bit higher, closer to the Vegas line. And that's where this Thomas one is probably going to get bumped throughout the day on PrizePicks once they figure it out. But that's easily the best prop that we have available on the day. And let's just look at the Thomas prop. Like, for rebounds, she is currently averaging 12.4 rebounds as well in the season. really one game where she didn't get the over. Okay. Looking at that game, it was a little bit of a blowout as well, only at 33 minutes. So assuming that the game stays close, I don't have the game over and under pulled up just yet, but assuming it stays close, I would imagine that she'd be able to get the over there as well. So because obviously she gets 4 more minutes, probably going to get at least 2 more rebounds, maybe 3 more to get the over, or at least a push. All right, so now let's switch up and get into the top MLB props. Now we only have 7 games today, but we are going to get some good ones right now. So we're seeing hits allowed 4.5, projected to get 4.5. So maybe not one you want to use, but Vegas is giving that about a 54% chance to hit. So that's a pretty good prop that we are getting. Let's just take a peek at pitching fantasy score real quick. Any good props there? I mean, not really. We are seeing that maybe the under is the way to go with a lot of these. It's very interesting in that regard. Really, the only decent over bet that we might have would be Tanner here. The rest of these are suggesting that we should bet the under, and maybe Chris Sale under for pitching fantasy score. That's very interesting to me. I want to take a deeper dive into that one. So this is actually the game that has the highest over and under. And so if you're doing hitting fantasy score props, obviously we want to bet the over on a lot of these because 9.5. So the data is suggesting that Chris Sale could struggle. 9.5 is the highest over and under on the slate, matched with this Colorado versus Arizona game. So with that being said, and looking at his game log where he has kind of struggled, I could kind of see a path in which he does get the under here. And you guys will see one of the best hitting fantasy score props was the only one that hit yesterday. It's kind of, we have to pick and choose. Do we want to bet the under for Chris Sale fantasy points or bet the over for that hitting fantasy score prop? So let's go ahead and touch on that one. So here we have another good prop. This was the only one that hit yesterday. You know, that happens, especially with the hitting fantasy score props where they've been hitting so frequently. I'm like, there's got to be a balancing act. And that kind of happened yesterday with Aaron Judge not getting the over. And, you know, guys, I misspoke there. He plays for Boston. So never mind, never mind that if-then statement. Okay. You can go ahead and use them together if you want to. But like looking at this for the hitting fantasy score props, we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. None of these really has the average Vegas line here, like too different. And that's going to be my worry today is that typically when the Vegas line is suggesting it's higher, then we can roll with that. So really the best one we're going to get is still Rafael for over his 7 fantasy points. That's the best one we're getting. But after that, there's not too many that I love. So let's just sort by average. Bryce Harper, we could roll with. Trey Turner casually popping up in there as well. He is someone that has been struggling. Really, it just takes him getting on base and then getting a steal. So if you want to roll with that, you can. Oh, man, that's tight. Trey Turner, who's Philly going against? 8.5 for the points. Or for the total, not terrible there, but I do think we want to be maybe chasing this game. And so looking at today, guys, I do see this day as more of a stacking day. So these are my 5 or 6 favorite props on the day. Okay. But I do see it more as a stacking day. And so what I mean by that is if you are running out these props, like you would want to maybe run out this as a stack right here. Okay. You could also then go back into the WNBA props and use those as a stack. And I'll show you guys that here in a second. And then you could also just use the hitting props as you see fit. Those don't really matter. What I'm trying to do here, especially with NBA, is I'm trying to find a narrative in the game. So thus I think stacking it would be the best route to go. So real quickly, I'll show you the WNBA props as well. So these are the WNBA props that were popping up. Just percentage wise, those were the ones that were popping up the best. Okay. So that's all for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the coverage. If you did, you know what to do. Give that like and subscribe. Hoping to have another good WNBA day. I don't know. I just don't like these single game days too much. I like to have a plethora of options to choose from. And so we have a day in which NBA is restricted, WNBA is restricted, and then MLB is restricted as well. And then even PGA right now, I have it pulled up while I'm watching it. There's just some weird scoring going on where it doesn't seem like there's a big edge because it's a little bit random in terms of who's struggling, who's playing well. So a better day, I would say, than yesterday, but also not a perfect day. Let's hope Friday is going to be a more better day. All right. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.